Man, getting ready for a software engineering interview, it can be so stressful, right? So today we're going to crack open the famous tech interview handbook. We'll pull out a super simple framework that'll help you land that dream job and, without all the burnout.
Okay, so this is the question on literally everyone's mind. You open up LeetCode, you see this giant mountain of problems, we're talking over 1,000, and you just think, seriously? Do I have to grind all of these? It feels like that's the only path forward, but is it really the smartest one?
All right, let's get right into it. This quote is a big deal. It's from Yang Shun, an ex-staff engineer at Meta and the guy who actually wrote the tech interview handbook. And what he's saying is, just mindlessly grinding problems, it's a total waste of your time. So if that's not the answer, then what is?
Well, the answer is all about strategy. It's working smarter, not harder. Instead of just, randomly doing problems, we need a real framework, a clear, structured game plan that makes sure we cover all our bases.
And this framework, it's super simple, built on just 3 key pillars. First, plan. You gotta structure your study. Second, perform. You need to know how to absolutely crush it during the actual interview. And third, practice. But, practice the right way, simulating the real deal. So let's dig into why this approach is such a game changer.
Okay, this is fascinating. When you look at how the big tech companies, the FAANGs, actually evaluate you, it's not what you think. It's not just about your code. Look at this. It's an equal split. 25% for communication, 25% for problem solving, 25% for your technical skills, and a full 25% for testing. So if all you're doing is grinding LeetCode, you're pretty much ignoring 75% of what they're actually looking for. That's huge.
So the big question is, how do you possibly prepare for all 4 of those areas? Well, it all starts with that first pillar we talked about, planning. This is all about being smart and deliberate with your time, and really zeroing in on what actually matters. The handbook actually gives you a super detailed 3-month study plan. And this little sample here shows the whole idea perfectly. See? Instead of just grabbing random problems, you tackle specific topics one by one. You start with the high priority stuff, like arrays and strings, to build a really solid foundation. Then you move on from there. So what's the magic number of questions you need to solve? Is it 1,000? 500? Nope. It's way less than you think. The author put together this amazing focus list called Grind 75. It's a handpicked set of just 75 essential questions. And they're not random. They're designed to teach you the most important patterns you're going to see. And that right there, that's the whole philosophy. This is so crucial. The goal isn't to memorize thousands of answers. It's to learn and really understand the patterns behind the problems. Because once you get the pattern, you can solve a whole family of problems that use it, not just the one you happen to memorize.
Okay, so you've got your plan. Now let's talk about that second pillar, performance. I mean, knowing all this stuff is one thing, right? But showing what you know in a super stressful 45-minute interview, that's a whole different ballgame. This is where you send those big, flashing hire me signals.
So, the interviewer gives you the question, what's your first instinct? Probably to just jump in and start coding, right? Well, don't. The handbook is super clear on this. You have to clarify things first. Repeat the question in your own words. Ask about edge cases. Make sure you understand all the assumptions. It immediately shows them you're thoughtful and you care about the details.
And before you write a single line of code, talk about your game plan. Lay out maybe 1 or 2 different ways you could solve it. Talk to your interviewer about the pros and cons of each, like the trade-offs between time and space complexity. When you do this, it stops being a test and starts feeling like you're working with them to solve a problem. And trust me, that is a huge, huge hire signal.
All right, now you're coding. As you type, you need to be talking. Explain what you're doing and why. And the code itself, it's got to be clean, something that looks like it could actually go into production. That means using good, meaningful variable names, not just X or R, and breaking up your logic into smaller helper functions. This stuff screams technical competence.
And listen, when you finish typing the last line, you are not done. So many people make this mistake. This is where the testing phase kicks in, and it's critical. You need to be the one to find the bugs first. Walk through your code with a couple of test cases, especially those tricky edge cases, to prove that it works. Your interviewer is absolutely waiting for you to do this. Okay, that brings us to our third and final pillar, practice. Because let's be real,
Interviewing is a skill. It's not just about knowing stuff, it's a performance. And just like any other skill, you have to practice it over and over to get good. So when should you start? The handbook has a really specific tip here. Start doing mock interviews when you're about 60% done with your study plan. Why then? Because at that point, you know enough stuff to actually make the practice useful, and you can start getting used to the pressure of a real interview setting. Okay, so where can you do this? The author points to a couple of great platforms. First, there's interviewing.io, which is awesome because you can do anonymous mock interviews with actual engineers from top tech companies. Then there's Pramp, which has a cool peer-to-peer thing going on where you take turns interviewing other job seekers like yourself. And honestly, the number of tools out there is just growing every day. You can check out places like Hello Interview, which uses AI to give you feedback, or MeetAPro, which is kind of like an Airbnb for mock interviews. It connects you directly with pros from FAANG. There's even Academia, which uses AI to give you an instant score on your solution. Lots of options. But hey, you don't always have to pay for a fancy service. At the end of the day, like the author says, this is all about repetition. Seriously, just grabbing a friend, sitting down and taking turns interviewing each other, that's a fantastic and totally free way to level up your skills. So let's take a step back. That huge, scary mountain of interview prep that felt so overwhelming at the start, it's not so bad now, is it? It's a journey, and the best part is you now have a map.
And it's a really simple map. 1, plan your study using a focus list like Grind 75. 2, learn how to perform under pressure by being a great communicator and testing your own code. And 3, practice the actual skill of interviewing until it feels like second nature. Plan, perform, practice. That's it.
So there you have it, a smarter path to success, straight from the tech interview handbook. But it's one thing to know the path, it's another thing to actually walk it. So I'll leave you with just one question. What's your first step going to be?